Okay, so it looks like we're on. I'm just waiting for our guest right now. So we're just waiting on our guest right now. I think that she'll be on in just 1 minute. I really got to put like some music or something on here while we're starting up while we're waiting for Yasmeen, our guest. She'll be here in just a minute. Well, anyway, I just want to say hi and thank you for all of you joining. Again, I don't know if you heard, our speaker will be here momentarily. I'm just waiting on her. I know that setting up through StreamYard can be it can be a task. So um, just give her a couple minutes and we'll start. If y'all are in here, it's okay to say hi or whatever. I'm just again waiting on our guest. So y'all know we a little bit on CB time. That's okay. She'll be here in a minute. Still waiting on her. I'm so nervous with this StreamYard thing. I don't even know what to expect. Let's see. So she said just a couple minutes. So okay, next time I'm gonna get some music. Y'all let me know what kind of music y'all would want to hear. I guess it would probably have to be like stock music or generic stuff. Probably nothing licensed. But while we're waiting for our guest to show up, I don't know. I guess I should have had music or something. Oh, Gabby's saying jazz and classical. Okay, yeah. You know what? Yeah, I think maybe some jazz or something like that would try to. I think that would be a good idea. And I gotta find some generic jazz music that I can play on here. I don't get a copyright strike or anything. Yeah. All right now. Where is she at? No elevator music. I don't know. I might not have a choice but to do elevator music if YouTube says elevator music. Let me see. Where is she at? Let me see if she's having trouble getting in here because we a little bit behind. I'm looking to see where she is. I guess that's a yeah. So we still waiting for her. If y'all just tuning in, I'm waiting for my guest to show up. She said a few minutes. Well, anyway, I guess maybe I'll kind of start with where we wanted to have this episode, where we wanted to have this discussion. On the podcast, we talk a lot about red flags and setting boundaries and stuff like that, but we don't talk enough about the healing process. So, like, once you decide to leave this toxic relationship, be it abuse or it's just this horrible cycle, and you see the red flags, like, what do you do after that? So, that's what we are here to address. Still waiting on my guest, y'all. So, whenever she gets here, we can kick this thing off. Thank you all for your patience while we wait for the speaker, our guest. Okay, she said that she was behind. Um, hmm. Okay, I see her. Okay, she here. She.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
I'm so sorry. I'm well. I realized that I could not use my Safari, so I had to go through Google Chrome, so it took me a few minutes.
Okay, no, thanks for showing up. You look lovely.
Thank you so much. Give
So
me one
I.
second.
Okay.
Okay, I'm here. Thank you. Let me put my
Okay.
computer on Do Not disturb because if it rings. So, are we supposed to be on video or are we not doing
So
video?
I don't like to have my identity out there, but I look, if you want to have video, you know, it's a good idea. I mean, you
I
look
mean,
great. I just don't show my face.
it's hilarious. It's fine.
Okay. So thank you for joining us. So I
No
guess we can
problem.
start by you telling us more about you and the pursuit of healing.
Okay, cool. So my name is Yasmeen Ojwang. Call me Yaz or Yasmeen. My last name is pretty complicated for most people. I am a licensed clinical social work associate. I do own the Pursuit of Healing Wellness Center. We are a virtual safe space, all things healing, wholeness, and wellness, mostly geared towards the faith based believer, Christian woman who struggles with like mental health, struggles with self care, struggles with taking care of her mental and emotional and spiritual capacities, right? And so we created an atmosphere virtually that, again, is a safe space for people to come feel the freedom of vulnerability and sisterhood and community, but also are able to get therapy or coaching services. I am an author. I wrote a book called The Healing Journal, which is a 30-day devotional journal with journal prompts, affirmations, and I tell a lot of my story of how I had to walk through healing in different areas of my life in hopes that it will help jumpstart someone else's healing journey. Um, we host events, we do brunches, we will be moving towards doing retreats and things of the sort. I am also a nonprofit owner of a nonprofit called Kujinga Tumaini, which started in Kenya. We service girls and women who are overcomers, I like to call them, not really survivors, but overcomers of trauma, various types of trauma. And we have started to do some groundwork here in the US as well to connect that work and make it more global. I am a lover of all things brunch, all things nature, yeah, I'm a mom, a wife. I have twin girls, and I'm really chill. I'm probably the life of the party in most time in most settings, but I am a pretty chill person. I am pretty laxed. I'm easygoing, um, and I'm a truth teller.
I hear that. Oh my goodness. You are phenomenal. You do a
Thank
lot.
you.
I did when I was like looking at your information to find out more about you before I asked you to come on, I did see that you were doing work in Kenya. I was like, what? Like this goes overseas, and I think that's amazing. But the thing
Mhm.
about you is I really liked your philosophy on like healing and everything like that. It seems like you're also
Mhm.
big on boundaries, and that's something that I talk about constantly on this
Mhm.
show. So I guess we can just jump into it. Since we are both very centered on boundaries, what
Mhm.
kind of boundaries are good for a black woman to set, especially when she's getting out of that toxic relationship, and it's important to get back in touch with yourself? So I want to know more about what you think would be, a good start for that with boundaries and moving in that direction, because they've gotten out now. They're like, okay,
Mhm.
I'm done with this. I see the red flags. This is not right. It's worn on me mentally and physically, spiritually.
Mhm.
So they get out. So what
Mhm.
should they be setting? What should they be doing?
I always say with boundaries, the most important thing is because we think about external work, right? We think about setting things externally before we set them internally, right? And so you have to establish what makes you feel safe. What is safety indicators? You have to establish what really sets the tone for your comfort in your relationships. And this is just in general, right? What sets the tone for you being able to stand in your truth and be 100% yourself. But really, boundaries are more about safety. What keeps me safe? What keeps me in a space where I can be free in engagement with others. But first, how can I be free within myself? So I have to establish my non-negotiables. I have to establish what makes me feel safe. Safety identifiers. I have to identify um, what keeps me balanced also. Because I think when if you're a person who is passive aggressive or is afraid to speak up or gets anxiety around speaking up. Okay, so how do I establish a boundary where I can effectively speak my truth, right? So that people are not just walking over me or not being held accountable.
Okay. So, and I'm assuming for everyone that'll look different. So you need to identify
Absolutely.
what makes you feel safe.
Mm-hmm.
And okay, okay. So that's really important. So after that, so you're working through, which takes time to identify like what's comfortable, what's safe.
Mm-hmm.
Because I was gonna ask you, what does that safe space? So there is no one size fits all, but
Safety looks
I'm
different
going
for
to
everybody.
right. I'm
Everybody.
going
Like
to
what I
assume.
sorry.
No, no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
And I was gonna say what looks safe for Yasmin might not look safe for Missy. You get what I'm saying? So what I may feel comfortable in, what may be like a okay thing for me, that might not be an okay thing for you or the next person. So it's very personable, right? No boundary is a one size shoe fit all. No, I know we can say off the bat like this looks safe or that these are signs of safety, but I think each woman has her own identifier to say this makes me feel safe. I don't think I've heard people talk about similar things, but I think people have different perspectives of what safety means to them and what it feels like. So it's definitely not a just a okay, this is safety for you, and it means this is safety for everybody.
Okay, okay. So on that journey, again, because I'm trying to think of someone who is just getting out of this, like whatever happened, they snapped or they realized I can't do this anymore. Because at some point, it will, like those toxic relationships will push you out to the
Mm-hmm.
point. I don't know how to explain it. You don't even want to be in this relationship at all. It
Mm-hmm.
could take years or however long. So coming out of that, can you tell us like what are some of the mental barriers that you've seen with the women that you interact with, and how to get past those? Because I know that a lot of this is mental, right?
Mm-hmm. Well, I
Mhm.
think also just not mental, it's physical, right? People are scared. There's fear. Fear is like one of those number one things, the fear of what life would look like without this person, the fear of starting over, the fear of even engaging in help, right? Receiving help. is fear is like one of those main factors. I don't know what it looks like to allow people to help me, because now I'm paranoid. Now I feel damaged. I feel broken by this. So I don't know how to allow myself to be vulnerable or to allow help in. I would say that, you know, I always say community is one of the greatest assets in your healing journey, right? But not everybody has a tribe or has identified safe spaces, meaning people that they can lean on. And that, again, that support might look different. But I mean, and I'm assuming that, not even assuming, I know, right? That a lot of every situation or relationship looks different. So some people may have been isolated from people. Some people may have just been mentally isolated, where it's like I can be around people, but I'm also being brainwashed or in this situation where I don't really want to let anybody in because I'm dealing with shame and embarrassment and guilt because I got this far and I saw the red flags, right? And so I think a part of that is fear, shame around, like, yeah, I'm out. That's one part of your process, but then that's really the beginning of a mental battle and a choice being made that I'm going to choose to address all of these barriers. Have to now back to safety. Have to now reestablish what looks and feels safe for me, and that means identifying like what my core beliefs are, because now I might believe that everybody I encounter, not even just like romantically, but everybody I encounter is like out to get me, or they're gonna see me as dumb or stupid because I stayed this long, right? So really, the inability sometimes to reframe those thoughts, and it takes time. It takes a lot of grace and patience with oneself, and it takes a therapy, like therapy, community. You know, because you need people to hold you accountable and to remind you who you are, right? Because that shame, that guilt will lie to you. It will tell you that you're somebody that you're not. It'll tell you that you are a reflection of your situation. Like what happened to you is real, but what it's trying to paint you to be is not a real narrative. It's a false negative narrative.
Okay, so it sounds like fear is behind all of this. It sounds like
Hmm.
fear is the reason why a lot of us won't leave. And I can only speak for my personal situation. It's why I didn't leave when I should have. So, and then it's also what keeps you from probably reconnecting. Because I would imagine for other women as well as myself, obviously, as Black women, a lot of that stuff is not taken seriously, like you and I talked about before. Like,
Hmm.
okay, well, he didn't put his hands on you. But when it
Hmm.
comes down to it being toxic, like, it doesn't feel right, there's
Hmm.
that fear of reaching out to the community, right? Like, it sounds like that's the driving force behind everything.
Yeah, fear
um,
is a trip. Okay, fear will tell you that if you reach out, here's where it comes back to like that shame, right? Because shame tells you who you are. It tried to paint, it tells you a false narrative of who you are. Guilt says what I did is bad, right? So guilt will say like, dad, I stayed too long. Shame will say you're a dummy. Like you know, it really defames your character, right? It defames your identity. So it makes you believe that, wow, I'm useless, right? You hear people talk about themselves all the time like this, like I'm useless or I'm unworthy or I deserve that, right? It really paints a picture about this really misconstrued identity, when it's like I was really in something that I didn't even know how I got in there. You know, like I was one day I was like, oh, this is cool. I saw a red flag. Next thing you know, I was in too deep, right? And so yeah, you it's not who you are, it's what you were in. But that shame and that fear, they like partner together and they're telling you like, oh, they have a voice. Fear has a voice, shame has a voice, you know, and it really tries to paint this picture of women, especially Black women. And you know, even in our communities, like I know that everybody's been like, oh, mental health, but in a lot of like family cultures, mental health is not like a thing. It's not like a, oh, go talk to somebody, go do therapy. So I think you have to really think about the dynamics of a person's experience, not just a relationship, even externally, because that fear will say, well, your parents gonna tell you you were stupid, or you know, it really has this voice that tells you turn the other way, don't go towards light, don't go towards help.
okay. Okay. So let's go back to this scenario that I've created. Once this person has gotten, she's gotten out of this relationship, we've talked about mental barrier, like the biggest one being fear. So she'll probably have to address that at some point. She needs
Mm-hmm.
to address what makes her feel safe, and
Mm-hmm.
in the inverse, what makes her feel unsafe.
Mm-hmm.
So at this point, how do you see the average Black woman moving next after that? to have a healthy healing journey?
What is a direct question? I'm sorry. I just want to make sure I'm understanding you clearly.
Okay. So in this scenario that I've created, this black
Mhm,
woman has left this relationship. She's trying to identify what makes her feel safe, what makes her
mhm,
feel unsafe, her boundaries, and she's trying to address the fear so that she can reach out and, for the community to reach out to people and get their support. So what else would she need for a healthy healing journey? Because I feel like a lot of us don't know. Like, we know that we needed to get out of that relationship, but it's like, okay, so what do I do now?
mhm. Well, I think this whole journey really, I re-identifying who, and that's a whole journey of itself. Like, who am I? Because most people who've been in these relationships have lost. I hear it all the time. I've lost myself, or I was got so used to consuming that person and a life with that person. I don't know life outside of that. So I think it goes back to that journey of rediscovering oneself. Like, what is it that, and again, this is no small task, right? It's a big task. I know people who haven't even been in an abusive relationship and they still are having a hard time with tapping into themselves, right? This homecoming into themselves, right? Who am I? What do I desire? Getting in touch with themselves. What are some of the things that I don't like? This is why sometimes boundaries are hard, because we barely know ourselves a lot of the times, right? And so that part of that journey looks like, what does it look like to come home to me? Like, how do I reestablish a relationship with myself? Hear me out though. Like, that relationship with self is priority. But again, back to my original, and like I said, it's a foundational belief of mine that can plugging into community is going to be, and that's going to be hard, but it's going to have to be a willingness and intentionality. Anything that's hard, it has to be a level of intentionality, especially if it's something that's good for you, right? And so that means even that support might look like going to therapy, maybe talking to a trusted friend to get support, or being held accountable. Like, hey, did you set up that therapy appointment? Because it's definitely depending on how much mental um turmoil, or just the space they are in mentally, you're going to need support, right? You're going to need, it's an intricate part of your journey. So definitely, like, coming home to themselves, figuring out who they are all over again. I mean, you don't have to start, and you, like, not at the bigger picture, right? Because the bigger picture is, I want to feel more confident. I'm going to know who I am. But you got to start small. Like, okay, I know who I was there, but who am I now? What do I like? Like, what do I even like to eat? Like, it's something as simple as that. You might think you know yourself, but until you are out of something that literally snatched your identity and shifted you, when you're out of that, you have to reintroduce yourself even to the small things. What do I actually like? Like, what do I like doing on my free time? Because maybe on your free time you was consumed with that person that wasn't your free time. So, like, really rediscovering who you are through relationship with yourself.
And you know what? We say that all the time. I feel like in these spaces we talk about that. We say, okay, so what do you like doing? Because depending, like you said, depending on the kind of relationship it was, you can lose yourself in those relationships. When you talk about tapping back into community, I mean, I've seen a lot of situations where these women are isolated from family and friends. So that might mean reconnecting. I know with me, I was isolated as well. So reconnecting with like family and friends, and then, like you said, reconnecting with yourself. Because again, depending on the severity of that relationship, right? Like, it could be you aren't able to do any of the things that you like because of this person. Like, if you go to do anything by yourself, if you want to get your hair done, you want to get your nails done, this person has something to say, or they, whatever the case
Mhm.
is. So, am I like in the right area of what you're saying?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Definitely, like, again, that reconnecting with self and definitely connecting with community. That's
Okay.
gonna be important.
So can you tell us a little bit more about, because I know that we don't have too much time, but I did want to get a little bit more about your book and then also journaling. If you could like
Mhm.
tell us a little bit more about the book
Okay.
and how you found journaling to be helpful for you, and how someone who's getting out of this toxic situation might benefit from that. Because I
Mhm.
don't think a lot of people know where to start. I talked to someone the other day and I was talking about journaling, and she was like, "Well, I really don't know where to start. Like, what does
Yeah.
all that look like?"
So I think that journaling is, I say this all the time for me, and I think quarterly I look at old journals. I got journals since I was in like undergrad, right? Um, and for me, it's a point of reference. It's a space because as we go through life, there's gonna be times you're gonna feel like, dang, I'm not where I want to be. I'm not where I should be. Going through the woes of that, right? And I feel like journaling is that very thing that you can go back and look at the shift in your mindset, look at the shift in the way you have made decisions, the way you have processed through things, the way you have overcome things. I cry every time I read my journals because I'm like, wow, I was broken, right? I was traumatized. I was, thinking about some of the entries I wrote, and I'm like, wow, the woman I was then, who is she? Who is she? Because it doesn't look like who I am today. I would never respond today how I responded then. However, like the things that I wrote about is just amazing. Again, journal being your book of reference, you being able to go back and document and see your growth, your documented growth, your documented situations you have overcome, the things you have healed, your documented healing journey, right? It ain't gonna always be glamour. It is not glamorous. I mean, honestly, because our minds are a funny place, right? It's a beautiful, funny place because the mind can do what it wants. I always say our mind, our thoughts grows legs and then they get feet and they put on little shoes and they start running around and making up a whole lot of stuff, right? And so being able to see how, wow, there's a time I did not have control over my thoughts. I wasn't able to process stuff in a rational way. And now I can look at it and be like, whoa, I've come a mighty long way. I use it as encouragement. I use it as, I tell people all the time, there's so many different types of journaling. Some people feel it's internal pressure, right? Because they feel like, well, I have to write a million different things. And it's like, document whatever you feel like. I have like a million different journals right now that I'm writing in, and I'm exaggerating, but because my mind is always on the go, sometimes before I even sit down to like write anything clearly out, I do a word dump, like a brain dump, right? And so I have a journal where I just brain dump. I just like whatever is in my brain, I just start writing on the paper. There's no formulated sentences. There are no, there's no like specific content. It's just like whatever is in my brain in the moment, and that prepares me for the moment that I either like, I journal through prayer, I journal through I have a gratitude journal, I have a, like I said, a word dump journal, I have a journal like just for my dreams and visions and ideas that I want, so you can really make it whatever you want. Now I do understand that some people are not writers, some people do not enjoy sitting down getting things out on paper. If you not, I always even tell my clients, like, you might not like the thought of sitting down and writing, right? We in the world of technology, right? Get your phone, go to that little voice note and record something. Like, get it out of your brain, because if you don't, it's going to eat away at you. You can download these little apps that allow you to lock your little voice note or lock whatever area you're putting personal stuff in, so people can't get into that. You got to be creative, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the healing journal, because I journeyed through journaling in my healing journey, right? Like I literally wrote out my healing journey, right? As I was healing and in the trenches, I documented, I mean, every area of my healing journey. And while I do have vivid memory, it's nothing like being able to go back and see it, even the things I've like affirmed and declared over my life and seen it come to pass. I did that in journaling, right? That was my safe space. The times where I felt isolated from people, or I didn't have a chance to like, or the courage to talk or lean into community, I wrote in my journal. Like, I wrote out what I needed. So some people might need guided, journaling where they have prompts. Some people don't. But I, a lot of times for my clients who do struggle with figuring out what to write, I give them a prompt each week. Like, okay, here's a prompt, only focus on that. If you veer away from that, that's okay. That means that you're expanding your mind, or just like allowing yourself to be free in what to write. But there is no rule. Let me put that out there. There is no rule to journaling. The only rule is being able to give yourself the freedom and the opportunity to go ahead and write out what you need to write.
Yeah, I like that. I like that because I did realize, because I'm a writer. Like, I love writing, and I'm with you. I have journals and stuff that I used to write in back in like high school, and
Mm-hmm.
it was a mess. But a lot of those things, I can see the progress that I've made. So
Mm-hmm.
if nothing else, I mean, journaling or even taking that voice note that you said will help us to get our thoughts out. And so
Mm-hmm.
it's nice to be able to see that progress too as well.
Mm-hmm. Mhm.
So tell us more about the healing journal. I wasn't. What platforms are you selling it? Is it on Amazon? Like, where can we
So
find it?
it's currently on my. I'll just okay, we're not. People probably not gonna see my face. I was gonna show you the book,
No, no,
but
no. Please show. I think they no, they can see your face.
okay, my bad.
Show us what it looks like.
So this is the Healing Journal. This was launched in March of 2020, the beginning of COVID. But it is on my website www.thepursuitofhealing.org. And so I right now I'm only selling through my website. I am self-published,
Okay,
thankfully. I mean, nothing wrong with being published by anybody else. Let me clear that up. But I am self-published, and right now I'm only selling on my website. So people can either hit me up at info@thepursuitofhealing.org, or you can just visit my website and subscribe. Subscribe. Sorry, I had a long day.
I gotcha.
Subscribe, and you can just order the book straight from my website. And once I get the order, I'll get it out to you.
Okay. So I do have one question
Mhm.
from someone who's watching, and it's a little bit abstract, I think. So Gabriella is asking if she's like, will we ever forget mental abuse? Like when we go through it, or is it always going to be something that we have to live with for the rest of our lives? Is it something that you choose to move on from, or is it something that's kind of always going to be there? As you being the expert, because I don't even know.
Well, I'll share like just a very, and I'll do it very vaguely. Part of I went through something, right, years and years ago, and I remember always praying like, God, is this gonna forever plague me, right? Is this situation going to be the bane of my existence for the rest of my life? Because that mental battle is serious, right? And so what I will say, it's not about forgetting it, because it happened. Your trauma, your experiences have happened. It's not, your goal is not to forget it. Your goal is really being able to move, allow space to feel what you feel, allow space for you to process, meaning going through it, like allowing that space, allowing space for you to be honest about where you are, how it's affected you, identifying how it has controlled. When you talk about a mental battle, even as far as like trauma, it trauma thrives in narratives, right? And so because we are affected mentally by things, right, we have to look at how it is now affecting our responses in our present. Is it preventing me from trusting? Is it not allowing me to open up myself to better friendships, whatever that is? And so if it's hindering the way you do those things, it's more so about how am I managing it, right? We get so comfortable, even in the subconscious, with hoarding things in our minds, right? We are good at compartmentalizing. We are good with locking it away and thinking because we locked it away or disassociated that it won't come back up, right? But the very way you interact, the very way you live your life and see the world is evidence of it either being present still and not processed, or of a reality that, wow, I actually dealt with that and I processed through it. Again, you are not, it's something has happened in your life, you're not never going to forget it. The goal is not to forget, but the goal is to be able to manage it and take control back over your life. And the only way to do that is to actively challenge the areas that are barriers. So that might be, having negative thought patterns from that might be, again, core beliefs. I don't trust anybody because everybody are liars, right? That might be a core belief that you develop because of certain relationships, because of certain mental abuses, right? And so challenging those beliefs, I always say, put your thoughts on trial. Imagine, and I mean, this is like real, like evidence-based practice, like cognitive behavioral therapy, and excuse me, people do somatic, have a somatic experience or some somatic interventions where we take people through experiences of addressing certain things because of how it affects our body, how our body responds to that mental battle that we're having or that memory that we're having. So it's actively working through it, right? If you are only thinking about how can I forget this, you have to reframe that, right? Because you're going to let yourself down, because the memory is not going to go anywhere. How it's affecting you is what is going to be an indicator of if I've healed, or if I'm like actively working through healing with this, or am I still allowing it to be the driver of my life?
Wow. And I'm kind of glad that she asked us that, because that is something
Mhm.
that I was concerned about as well. So,
Mhm.
Yasmin, I want to honor your time. I know that you have to put the kiddos to bed, but thank you so much for being on and answering our questions and
No
giving such thoughtful
problem.
responses.
No
I definitely
problem.
want to check out the healing journal. I want to check that out. So
Okay,
if you
awesome.
can send me the link to it, I know it's on the website. But I
Okay,
kind of just want to post the direct link in case anyone wants to check it out.
okay.
Thank you
I'll just see my
again.
website. I'll send it to you. Is it any way I can type here?
Yeah, are you there should be a chat box.
Give me one second. Give me one second. I'm just typing. You know what? I t- it's a long day. I gotta retype that. I typed my email with the unbelievable.
That's okay. Or you can just send it to me because I'm gonna put it in the description of this video and send you the link anyway. So
Okay, cool. I
that's
sent
fine.
you.
Thank you so much for being here with us.
No problem. And Gabriella, thank you so much for the question, dear.
Okay.
Alrighty.